easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
Culture prevents so many negative things from happening to us as individuals and as communities.
Strong roots begin with a healthy heart. For us women, heart health is part of caring for community, culture, and future generations. Even small steps can help protect what matters most. Discover ways to support your heart at hendoncounty.gov/hearts-beats, because your heart beats for generations. Support comes from the Walker Arts Center. Visit during free Thursday nights. Every week from 5 to 9 p.m., there's something new to explore. Enjoy date-friendly events like artist talks, performances, and exhibition openings, or explore art-making open library hours and exhibition tours. Settle into your weekend among community. Free every Thursday night and free every day for citizens and members of tribal nations. More at walkerart.org.
There's a powerful story being shared at All My Relations Arts in Minneapolis. Unchi Said So, a solo exhibition by Danielle Seawalker, brings forward Native stories shaped by collective identity, generational knowledge, and teachings passed down through community. Through bold color and portraiture, this work honors the significance of grandmothers in Native culture while reflecting the idea that sovereignty begins at home. On view now through June 6th. Plan your visit today at allmyrelationsarts.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for clear skies tonight with a low around 51. Thursday, a chance for thunderstorms and a high near 78. And Friday, sunny with a high around 83. Discover macarons like you've never tasted before at Nicolette's Macarons in Plymouth. Pick up a box of elegant French macarons conveniently located right off Highway 169. They're perfect for special gifts, corporate events, or even just yourself. Stop in today or order online at nicolettesmacarons.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous. Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Cody Cup, hit me cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagita, all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and this episode is presented in partnership with the City of Minneapolis for Minneapolis AIR, American Indian Relations, who hosts a monthly conversation on the second Wednesday of the month regarding happenings that impact our Native communities in Minneapolis. And we're so grateful to have this partnership. And I want to hand it over to our friend, Minneapolis American Indian Community Specialist and guest host, Christine McDonald. Welcome. Hoa.
Oh, wow. Buju, Robert. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. My name is Christine McDonald. I'm the American Indian Community Specialist with the City of Minneapolis. Buju, Ogadaki, Gabuik, Nindijnakas, Ajijak Nindundem. Today, we are going to welcome our first guest, who is April Graves with the City of Minneapolis Health Department, and we're going to have a conversation around mental health. Welcome, April.
Thank you, Christine. Bonjour.
Bonjour. One of the things I like about having this format is it's an opportunity to introduce our community to the people who are doing the work at the City of Minneapolis. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do at the city?
Sure. I am a senior public health specialist at the Minneapolis Health Department. I've been working for the city going on 10 years now and have focused on violence prevention, workforce development, and now focusing on community health and well-being, mental health and well-being. I also serve as the the mayor of Brooklyn Center. I served 2
Wow.
terms as a council member prior to becoming mayor, and I'm also the mother of 4 children, 2 of which my daughters are members of the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe.
Oh, that's incredible. I didn't know that. That's nice to know. I
Yeah.
love getting to know people, things you didn't know before. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do in the city of Minneapolis?
Absolutely. So, like I said, the work I'm doing is really focused on community mental well-being, and public health. And a big part of my work really focuses on equity, healing, and connecting communities to resources that support mental health and wellness.
Mhm.
What really drew me to this work is both personal and professional. I've really seen how mental health impacts individuals, families, and entire communities, especially communities that have historically faced barriers and that are still navigating historical traumas. I also often starts conversations, especially with young people that are focused on mental health, about self-awareness, because I know that really knowing yourself and understanding where your behaviors, your reactions, and your coping patterns come from is sort of a first step in being able to learn how to self-regulate and then ultimately make better choices for yourself that can create a healthier and happier life. And to just be honest, this journey has been very personal for me. I've struggled with anxiety and depression. I've navigated through an abusive relationship and loved ones that are suffering from chemical dependency. And I know what it feels like to operate in survival mode and to see your loved ones operate in survival mode. So many of the tools that I've developed throughout my life in self-awareness, yoga, meditation, and community healing has really been a process of me being able to continue to hold space for myself and for my loved ones and show up for the communities and the causes that I care about. If I don't take care of myself, I recognize that I'm not going to be able to do that well for anyone else.
Mhm.
And burnout is very real, especially for people who are spending so much time caring for others, who are advocating and leading and have survived these difficult circumstances, both in their professional, personal, or historical context. So we just have to take mental health a lot more seriously. We have to take emotional exhaustion seriously, and we have to do it before it reaches a crisis point. So
Mhm.
this conversation is really about making conversations about mental health more normalized, and also recognizing the power of prevention in that process.
Mhm. I really love that. Thank you for being so open and sharing your own struggles. I think having people be more open and sharing that makes it okay for other people to know that they can seek out those same resources and services, and it doesn't have the same stigma, I think, that it had 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's getting better, but it's still, oftentimes I think even, how we socialize our young people,
mhm,
and especially like different gender differences can definitely play a role in whether it's stigmatized or not.
right. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. What does that mean and why is it important?
Well, it's really just an opportunity to normalize conversations that many people tend to kind of avoid or keep silent about.
Mhm,
It's a reminder to us that mental health is health. So much of our physical health is connected to our mental health as well. So it's not a luxury, it's not a weakness, and it's not something people should be ashamed of. In fact, I really am a believer in the fact that vulnerability is a way of showing strength, because it takes a lot of
mhm,
courage to be vulnerable and share our stories and build. And really, that's how we are able to build connections with people. If we're not willing to kind of let our guard down at times, then it makes it more difficult. But it's also opportunity to also highlight the disparities that are evident and that are impacting
right.
both indigenous community as well as youth, LGBTQIA, and
Mhm.
other communities of color. And oftentimes, marginalized communities are not feeling supported by the traditional systems.
Mhm. I absolutely agree. I feel like a lot of the systemic issues, the social issues that we're experiencing, the root cause is the trauma and the mental health that goes with that trauma. When we talk about mental health in the Native community, what are some of those realities that need to that don't get talked about enough, and cultural stigmas that surround the topic?
Well, I think one reality that I think we all know about, but that we definitely don't necessarily talk about enough, is just how many natives are carrying generations of grief,
Mhm.
of loss, and of trauma in their heart, in their bodies, and still trying to survive, still trying to thrive, still trying to care for their families and stay connected to their communities. And oftentimes those mental health struggles, they don't show up always in the way that we would expect. It can be easy to be judgmental if we're not recognizing that sometimes it also looks like exhaustion, like emotional shutdown, like isolation and substance use, or anger and overworking. And people just constantly staying busy so that they don't have to sit with what they're feeling, or living just in this constant state of survival mode. So for many Native families, I know survival mode didn't start with this generation. I mean, it's been ongoing. And we also don't talk enough about colonization, about boarding schools and forced assimilation, about the family separation, the violence, the poverty and racism, and the displacement that continues to impact Native mental health to this day. And we know that many Native children were taken from their families and punished for speaking their language, for practicing ceremony, for expressing their identities. And entire generations were disrupted in their ability to parent and instill culture and spirituality and traditional community practices. And so we can't separate that from the grief, from the historical trauma and the cultural loss. Those are those things also contribute to the systemic inequities that we still see to this day. So for some families, it's shown up through substance use or incarceration. It's shown up through violence or emotional suppression, or a difficulty to express affection and vulnerability. And it's not because we don't care, but because many of us develop those habits during survival. During the fight, flight, or freeze response, that can often feel like the only way to survive. And if we're not conscious about trying to sort of relearn or unlearn patterns and relearn new patterns of reflection, of understanding ourselves, then it can just become sort of ingrained in us that that's how we still solve our problems even to adulthood.
Absolutely.
Wow, this is going great. Hey, we'll be right back. You're listening to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio. Oh, wow. Oh, this is Robert Pilot. For Native relatives, healing is more than just sobriety. It's reclaiming Indigenous masculinity as a sacred, balanced force. Join Hunter Thundercloud for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. We explore how personal recovery uplifts our communities. It's time men step back into roles as mentors and spiritual leaders. Recovery is collective, and it starts with us. Tune in the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. Let's tend the fire together.
When we heal from our traumas,
when we face our fears,
let go of our addictions,
when we relearn our values,
when we live our teachings,
respecting our elders,
cherishing and honoring our children,
when we honor and take care of our spirit,
there will be no room left for sexual violence.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, it's Robert Pilot from Native Roots Radio. For a meal that feeds your soul and health, check out Gatherings Cafe. Located in the renovative Minneapolis American Indian Center, Executive Chef Vernon Defoe and team serve up incredible Indigenous flavors. Gatherings Cafe has amazing bison tacos featuring lean protein from native wise, corn tortillas, and homemade sides. It's fresh, local food rooted in ancestral knowledge. Stop by for breakfast or lunch. That's Gatherings Cafe, where tradition meets innovation.
Maintaining our health, particularly our heart health, is very important to us as a family.
Your heart gives you time with family, time with community, time to pass down what matters. Protecting your heart helps keep those moments alive. A visit with a healthcare provider can be one step toward a healthier future. Learn more at hennepincounty.gov/hearts-beats. Your heart health is essential because your heart beats for generations.
I'm Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and I want to be your next United States Senator, and you are listening to Native Roots Radio.
I'm on camera.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, welcome back, everybody. This episode is supported by the city of Minneapolis with Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations, and here's our guest host, Christine McDonald. Hoa!
Welcome back. I'm Christine McDonald, American Indian Community Specialist with the city of Minneapolis. And this segment, we are having our conversation with April Graves with the city of Minneapolis, who works for our health department. And we're talking about Mental Health Awareness Month. Before we went to break, we were talking about how some of the things that show up in mental health and the realities of what that looks like for our community. And some of the things that aren't talked about. You did bring up some of the generational trauma, and that also feeds into a lot of the compound trauma that we see today. We have families that are disrupted, babies that are taken away from their mothers, people who then seek out to self-soothe through substance abuse and fall into addiction. I think some of the things that we see today in our families too is the result of that. That self-soothing and falling into addiction. And I feel a lot of our conversations are trying to address addiction, and people see it as homelessness. It's not always just about homelessness. I mean, the people that we see are relatives that are on the streets right now. A lot of times 50% of those folks have somewhere to lay their head down at night, and they're living through that act of addiction. I firmly believe like a lot of this is the result of that trauma, is the result of that mental health. And we can't leave that discussion about mental health out of it when we are trying to find solutions. So you mentioned generational trauma. How would you define generational trauma, and how do you see it showing up in our community today?
Well, I mean, generational trauma is sort of defined as something that gets passed through families and communities over time due to experiences like colonization, boarding schools, the forced assimilation, the violence and displacement, and the ongoing poverty, racism, and chronic stress that affects our communities. And those experiences really disrupt families. They disrupted culture, the language, the identities, and the traditional support systems. And that was intentional. And it's happening. It still affects communities today. One thing I wanted to talk about too, though, is that, you know, even though there might be this intergenerational and generational and historical trauma, even though folks might be aware of something called ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences. And that can actually include things like violence, abuse, neglect, housing instability, substance use in the home, losing a loved one, growing up in environments where people are constantly feeling unsafe. And then when I say losing a loved one, it could be to imprisonment or to death. And ACEs are very, very, very common just in the general population, but also very high in the American Indian, the Native population as well. So when we talk about generational trauma, it's important to think about the role that ACEs plays, because that's something that's sort of being passed down over and over and over again through generations. And then there's the role of epigenetics as well, which is really just a story about inherited trauma. It's a reminder that you know, whether we have negative or positive relationships, we're passing down genes that have been adapted through generations. So yes, there's been many adverse childhood experiences. Yes, there's been plenty of historical and intergenerational trauma, but there's also been supportive relationships, right? There's been cultural connection. There's been stable environments that we can still find. There's ceremony, right? There's spirituality. There's language revitalization. My daughter, you know, she's taken every Ojibwe language table class she can at her school. Next year, she's going to college to go deeper, right? So there's community healing that can happen that can help to regulate our nervous systems and interrupt those cycles of trauma over time. So in many ways, just as, you know, the trauma has been intergenerational, so has the resilience of the Native community. And we still carry those things with us.
Yep, absolutely. The resilience, there's been such a resurgency in the language, people's interest in learning culture and tradition. And that goes back to the whole generational trauma. I think back to before contact, before colonization, how we lived and families were living intergenerationally. It was mom, the dad. It was like really communities of people, and boarding schools came and totally disrupted that by design.
Exactly.
And I remember one of our elders' stories about how she survived boarding school, but then when she came back, it had been so traumatic that in her brain she was taught that she didn't even want to be Native anymore. And so those systems really did create generations of people who were removed from their home and then didn't have the traditional teachings that we were all supposed to have. The values weren't passed on, the ceremonies weren't passed on. And that is really reflective in what we're seeing today. But it is amazing to watch. I'm so happy to hear that your daughter is going into college and that she's continuing her education around language. So what does the data tell us about mental health in Minneapolis, and how does that show up differently for women, for men, and for youth?
Well, the data tells us that the Native communities in Hennepin County, including Minneapolis, are experiencing some of the highest levels of mental health need and emotional distress. About 43% of American Indian residents reported needing mental health care within the last year. And Native residents also experienced disproportionately high suicide rates compared to the county averages. The residents are also significantly more likely to access services through the emergency room rather than a clinic, which is more expensive. And this really just points to a larger issue around access to preventive and ongoing care. Native residents also experience higher rates of housing instability, chronic stress, and barriers to long-term culturally responsive care. For women, there's often layers of caregiving burdens, grief, violence, historical trauma, and pressure to hold families and communities together while still navigating the systemic inequities. And for men, the stigma around vulnerability and emotional expression can make it harder to seek support before reaching a crisis point. I mean, and also more likely to, like you said, Christine, find other ways to self-medicate and cope. For Native youth, we're seeing high levels of anxiety, hopelessness, those adverse childhood experiences, and emotional distress, while also recognizing the incredible resilience and leadership that many of the Native young people continue to show as well. I think one of the most concerning statistics is that 64% of American Indian students reported experiencing at least some adverse childhood experience, or ACE, which can include those things I listed before. But they're also among the group most likely to report not having a caring adult, which is a huge protective factor for young people. So, and having a caring adult in your life can really reduce a lot of those risk factors and just make them feel more supportive. And when I say a caring adult, it doesn't have to be a family member. It can be a teacher, it can be a counselor, or you could be a caring adult to a young person today that you don't even know, just a caring adult in the moment. So I just want to stress that there's lots of ways that we can be making an impact, even just with something as simple as saying, "Hey, how are you doing today? I see you."
That's so important right now. I think back to I get into so many different conversations across the community, and one of them today was the sad reality that addiction has taken on our community. We have a generation of kids right now that a number of them are growing up without either of their parents because they've been lost to overdose. And so they're either being raised by a parent, a grandparent, a great grandparent, an aunt, an uncle. There's a number of them that are displaced from family and community. And so stepping up and being that person to a young person, to our youth right now, is so important and so needed. There was a conversation I recall talking about how we had one of the large encampments, and there was an outreach worker who kept seeing a young person come, and they knew that they had a home that they could be at. And they asked that youth, "Why do you keep coming here?" And they said, "Because I feel more love here than I do at home." And so that caring adult it's significant, and can't stress that enough.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes when we're seeing unwanted or bad behaviors from young people, it's because it's the only place that they feel like they can actually express what they're feeling. So oftentimes in school, that's what we're seeing. Maybe they're not feeling like they can have those emotions and have a safe place to express them at home.
So for someone who wants help but feels overwhelmed or unsure where to start, what are some accessible or low cost resources that are available locally?
Well, first, I just kind of want to plug our city webpage that has mental health resources. And you can find that at minneapolismn.gov, under government departments, under health, and under mental health. You should be able to find that. I think also if you just looked up City of Minneapolis and mental health, you would probably be able to find it. But beyond that, we have many community clinics. We have school-based mental health programs. We have peer support groups and culturally specific organizations, crisis lines like 988, which is a suicide crisis line. We have faith-based supports and mobile crisis teams that are available throughout Minneapolis and Hennepin County. There's also many organizations that are working to make mental health support more affordable and more culturally responsive. But I always encourage people to start somewhere, whether that's talking to a trusted person, reaching out to a provider, connecting with community, or using a crisis resource if immediate support is needed. But I also think that none of us should have to go through these things alone. You reach out to a friend, take a deep breath. Those kinds of resources are at your disposal. Take some time to smudge, pray. I always think about meditation as being like the opposite side of prayer. So when we're praying, we're reaching out to speak to Creator. And when we meditate, we're calming our mind to listen.
Thank you so much for being with us today, April.
My pleasure. Miigwech.
Wow, beautiful. Hey, we'll be right back. You're listening to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio. Great segment, guys. Support comes from the Walker Arts Center. Visit during free Thursday nights. Every week from 5 to 9 p.m., there's something new to explore. Enjoy date-friendly events like artist talks, performances, and exhibition openings, or explore art-making open library hours and exhibition tours. Settle into your weekend among community. Free every Thursday night and free every day for citizens and members of tribal nations. Learn more at walkerart.org.
There's a powerful story being shared at All My Relations Arts in Minneapolis. Unchi Said So, a solo exhibition by Danielle Seawalker, brings forward Native stories shaped by collective identity, generational knowledge, and teachings passed down through community. Through bold color and portraiture, this work honors the significance of grandmothers in Native culture while reflecting the idea that sovereignty begins at home. On view now through June 6th. Plan your visit today at allmyrelationsarts.org.
Hello, this is Robert Pilot. For Native relatives, healing is more than just sobriety. It's reclaiming Indigenous masculinity as a sacred, balanced force. Join Hunter Thundercloud for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. We explore how personal recovery uplifts our communities. It's time men step back into roles as mentors and spiritual leaders. Recovery is collective, and it starts with us. Tune in the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. Let's tend the fire together.
Mornings can be tough, unless, of course, you're listening to The Stephanie Miller Show every weekday morning from 8 to 11 on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Heart health is more than just the physical well-being. It represents like a foundation of vitality, resilience, and the ability to live fully.
Your heart carries stories of resilience, love, and survival. Caring for your heart means honoring yourself and the generations before and after you. It means protecting your ability to gather, laugh, and be present. Learn more about your heart health at hennepincounty.gov/heart-beats, because your story matters and your heart beats for generations.
This is Chase Iron Eyes announcing a new show on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, powered by Native Roots Radio. The show is called Native American Patriot Talk Radio. What will we do on the show? We are going to explore and dive into the source of American constitutional sovereignty, the intersection of Native American and legal issues. Find us the first and third Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. on AM 950.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for clear skies tonight with a low around 51, Thursday a chance for thunderstorms and a high near 78, and Friday sunny with a high around 83. Discover macarons like you've never tasted before at Nicolette's Macarons in Plymouth. Pick up a box of elegant French macarons conveniently located right off Highway 169. They're perfect for special gifts, corporate events, or even just yourself. Stop in today or order online at nicolettesmacarons.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, this episode is supported by the City of Minneapolis with Minneapolis AIR, American Indian Relations. Here's our guest host, Christine McDonald. Ho!
Thank you, Robert. Welcome back. I'm Christine McDonald, American Indian Community Specialist with the City of Minneapolis. Our next guest is Louise Matson, who is the Executive Director of the Division of Indian Work and currently the Vice Chair of the Metropolitan Urban Indian Directors, which is we also refer to as MUID. I was really excited to have our guest on so that we could talk about the Metropolitan Urban Indian Directors during May, because in Minnesota, May is American Indian Month. Welcome, Louise. Thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about MUID and Indian Month.
So first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, what you do for DIW, what you do for MUID?
Yes. So my name is Louise Matson. I'm Bear Clan from the White Earth Nation, but I'm urban Indian through and through. I've always lived and still live Southside Minneapolis. Actually been at the Division of Indian Work for 23 years, and I've been the Executive Director for about the last 12 years. And I've always been involved with MUID in some way, shape, or form. And right now I'm the Vice Chair, which that's true for the next couple of weeks.
Right.
We had elections, and so then I'll be stepping off and we'll have a new leadership team, which is pretty exciting to me.
That is exciting. And I want to thank you for the time that you spent as Vice Chair. It's always a pleasure to get to know some of the executive directors, presidents of the organizations, and have the opportunity to work closer with them. Can you tell us a little bit about what MUID is, history, how it got started?
Yes, and I think it's interesting. I was listening to April talking in her segment, and when you talk about needing support and help and reaching out to one another, that's how MUID started. So about 50 years ago, a group of executive directors for Native organizations decided to come together as a circle of support. So that's leaders like Marlene White Rabbit Helgamo, who, and that's how it started, as like a circle of support, and it still continues that way. The MUID group it's a volunteer group. It consists of about 36 Native-led organizations on both sides of the river. And we come together monthly to support each other still. But we also have agendas and projects we all work on, both as a full MUID committee. And then there are 7 subcommittees that also do a lot of work on just different projects or areas of interest for people, or where we see a need, or just to get together and celebrate like we are doing this month.
Can you tell us what it means to be a member of MUID, how you qualify, those type of things?
Yes, to be a MUID member organization, you have to meet 2 out of 3 criteria. So you have to have an executive director that's Native American, a board that's majority Native American, and then serve the Native American community. And that's what that's how we identify who is able to participate. And then every year we ask people if they want to participate. Nobody has to. It's all volunteer work. We are lucky that we have a memorandum of understanding with the city of Minneapolis that funds our work it's a small contract, but it enables us to have a coordinator. So Barb Drew, she works really, really hard to schedule the meetings. She puts out the agenda. She does the notes. She just spreads the word for everybody, keeps us on track. And then we have Christine as a specialist, who's really our liaison with the city and helping us understand what's going on in Minneapolis and reaching out to making those connections between those like elected officials and their offices. And then we have a chair, a vice chair, a secretary or a treasurer, and then kind of a communications person now. And so that's all voluntary too. People usually serve for about a year. I've been a little bit longer this time because again, we're not organized as a nonprofit. We don't have bylaws. We have guidelines, but we have some flexibility in how we choose to do things. And so to me, I just love being a part of MUID. I mean, we, as a community, we don't always agree on everything, but we do partner really well together. I'm really proud of that in Minneapolis. And so we partner on things like we had a kickoff parade, and Christine really worked hard. She was the lead person with that, but we had MUID members that we had a float contest, and we had an elders panel that voted on it. We have a traveling trophy. We had food. We had speakers, a drum group, breakfast, and just those kind of positive things to celebrate our community is all coordinated through the work of MUID members. And again, with Christine's a huge leader on that. We also have Indigenous Peoples Day in October, and we have a sunrise ceremony, beautiful ceremony at Medeamacaska. And that's also something we'll organize and have food, and usually not a lot of speakers. We're just wanting to be with each other that day. And, it's just a special day that's also put together by MUID members, again, with Christine's help from the city.
Yep. I've worked with MUID the whole time that I've been in this part of my career with the city as the American Indian Community Specialist. Like the core of my work is to support the American Indian Memorandum of Understanding with the Metropolitan Urban Indian Directors. I think one of the things that a lot of people get confused about or aren't informed about is what that actually means, what MUID does, and what they don't do. Can you tell us, try to dispel some of the things that people tend to assume that MUID does and what they can and can't do?
Yes, I think that's good because we don't want people frustrated. We're part of our community. We all want folks to understand what we're doing. And so we are not a 501c3. We're not an entity that's incorporated in any way. And so one thing that we do not do is like employment issues, or people have individual agencies, if they might have an issue with an employee or with their their client relatives, that's not something that we take on. And so I think people sometimes get frustrated or not realizing that will come to us, and we really don't do that and can't do that. And that's a personnel issue that happens separately. But what we can do is we can help connect people and help them get the help they need, or if they're wanting to share information. Like I always, when people call me and it's maybe something that I don't do at DIW or we don't do, I'm always like, come to a MUID meeting. Then you're going to talk to all these directors, and they might be interested in partnering with you on what your project is or your need. Sometimes we issue letters of support, or we come together about when we had to address the Metro surge, like those will come out with statements and speak on that. But again, like I said, we're not all, we're 36 different organizations, and we all have different missions and different staff and different things going on.
Right. And I think for me, one of the ways that I describe MUID is like you said, it's like a collaboration a collaborative of 501c3s that serve the American Indian community. And to encourage folks to participate in MUID, the easiest way to do that would be to get involved in attending the subcommittees. Can you tell us what those subcommittees are, what they do?
Yes.
They do know that they each meet once a month, except for, I think, PI, you can tell us a little more, PI, and then the unsheltered and opioid meet.
Yes, I mean, this is where really a lot of the work gets done is in these subcommittees. So there's Phillips Indian Educators, so that's the educational group. And that's when I started attending 20 years ago. I was invited to come, and I just got to learn from incredible leaders such as Elaine Salinas and Laura Waterman Woodstock. We have Family Preservation Committee. There's Health and Wellness. There's Opioid Unsheltered, Public Safety, Native Employment and Economic Development, and Arts and Culture. And so each committee is chaired by a MUID member and a community member. So there's co-chairs, and most of them meet monthly. Some of us meet twice a month. And the action that happens there it's pretty exciting work. I mean, I think for the PI group, we have a memorandum of agreement with the Minneapolis Public Schools Board of Directors. And it's very deliberate with the community and with the board. So it stands regardless of leadership change. This is a memorandum. It's unique in the country.
I love that.
It's not a legal document, but it's a mutual accountability to how can we do better for our kids. And in that MOA, there are things that have to happen, like the superintendent has to meet with us every month. We have a board liaison that comes to our PI meetings. We have teacher training, which I think is exciting. Hundreds of teachers have taken professional development through the PI group with MPS on best practices on working with Native students. And so those are some real actionable items that came. Bedote Learning Center, the charter school, was started in PI with PI members that started meeting. And I think like the unsheltered opioid work that they're doing, they have a report coming out, like Christine had mentioned before, that they're coming on, I think, later to share. And, all these different activities that happen in the subcommittees. And again, it's all volunteer people, and community are welcome to come. Please come to those meetings. They're not just supposed to be for leadership. They're supposed to be for community members and people with like boots on the ground that are doing the work in all these different areas. And you can go on the MUID website. It's muidmn.org. And Barb Drew's contact information there is take a look at those committees and see what interests you and start coming.
Thank you.
Well, excellent as always. Hey, this is Native Roots Radio, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio. Oh,
Culture prevents so many negative things from happening to us as individuals and as communities.
strong roots begin with a healthy heart. For Indigenous women, heart health is part of caring for community, culture, and future generations. Even small steps can help protect what matters most. Discover ways to support your heart at hennepincounty.gov/hearts-beats, because your heart beats for generations.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis Air. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis Air dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
Support comes from the Walker Arts Center. Visit during free Thursday nights. Every week from 5 to 9 p.m., there's something new to explore. Enjoy date-friendly events like artist talks, performances, and exhibition openings, or explore art-making open library hours and exhibition tours. Settle into your weekend among community. Free every Thursday night and free every day for citizens and members of tribal nations. Learn more at walkerart.org.
This is Chase Iron Eyes announcing a new show on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, powered by Native Roots Radio. The show is called Native American Patriot Talk Radio. What will we do on the show? We are going to explore and dive into the source of American constitutional sovereignty, the intersection of Native American and legal issues. Find us the first and third Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. on AM 950.
Hi, it's Dr. Evan Adams, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio. Hey, Victor, you better be listening.
In this portion of the show, we'd like to bring awareness to our wolf and bear populations throughout Turtle Island. Say no to the hunts.
Hey, welcome back. This episode is supported by the City of Minneapolis with Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations. Here's our guest host, Christine McDonald.
Thank you, Bonjour. I'm Christine McDonald, American Indian Community Specialist with the City of Minneapolis. Our guest for this segment is Louise Matson, who is the Executive Director of the Division of Indian Work and is also the current Vice Chair of the Metropolitan Urban Indian Directors. I just felt that it was a great opportunity to bring her on and talk about MUID and what they do, a little bit about what they don't do during this time, because May is American Indian Month in Minnesota. And before we went to break, we were talking about, we got into it a little bit about what the subcommittees of MUID are. There's 7 subcommittees of MUID. We have health and wellness, arts and culture, employment, economic development, public safety. We have arts and culture.
PIE.
Phillips Indian Educators. And then did we say family preservation?
Yep, family preservation.
I think some of them are a little self-explanatory. I think family preservation is one that I think could use a little bit more description on what that is. That really focuses more on what are keeping our families together. Indian Child Welfare Act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it mini MUID sometimes, but that has a lot of folks that are working on family reunification, keeping the families together, and those issues. So they do a lot of good work around that, including helping with the conferences when they're here, dealing with that issue. So yes, and I guess Phillips Indian Educators, it sounds odd, but it was started in the Phillips neighborhood by like Elaine Salinas and Joe Rice, who used to run Center School. And so that's how long that group has been meeting, a long time. And arts and culture, actually the chair of that is Rihanna Yazzie. And so they, and then Allison Wakad, she's a ball of fire with the Met Council. So I really encourage people to join. And, you know, these meetings are typically a couple hours. I know opioid, there's the opioid unsheltered. I think there's like 50 people that go to that.
It is easily.
Yeah. And it's a potluck, and it's really addressing, you know, our relatives that need our help. And there's a lot of dedicated people that attend that meeting. And so I love hearing about what they're doing. And I did want to mention too that, you know, this group, when we talk about, and April was talking about help and support, you know, for example, when they cut SNAP benefits in the fall, members of MUID organized to do like an emergency group where we met to discuss and share, like in an Excel document, who has what, who has food, who can deliver food, who can do this, and it was Minneapolis and St. Paul agencies, and who has volunteers that can bring things out. And then we pivoted when we had Metro Surge, and that became like, how do we help one another deal with this resources? And really did all kinds of food drop-offs, all sorts of agencies, and bringing out like supplies to the people that were protesting, like, eye wash and masks. And most importantly, we really took care of our elders. So making sure that they got food, they got hygiene items, that they were taken care of. So those kind of things happen and address like emerging needs in the community. A lot of that is through, MUID members.
I feel like that was able to happen so smoothly because of the experiences that we had during the civil unrest. MUID was able to really come together quickly. They were having emergency meetings a couple times a week to talk about what was happening in our community, how we could address some of the crises that we were seeing in our families. The mutual aid aspect was absolutely amazing to witness. And I think that happened so well from what we learned from George Floyd. We were able to, we had an organization, Indigenous Protectors Movement is a member of MUID. They stepped up and really leaned into the space that was made available to them. Native American Community Development Institute stepped up, make voting a tradition. A lot of the people who work there then were able to turn their time and provide their services, their time spent taking in donations, making sure donations got out to families who needed it. That was really it was amazing to witness. And I was so proud to be a part of that and be able to, at that time, tell my boss, like, hey, this is what's happening in my community. As a community specialist, my time is going to be best spent working from there daily. So then it also allowed me to be that person, that go-between person, coming back to the community, telling them what I'm hearing from the city sources and coming back to the city and telling them what community needs were. MUID just did a phenomenal job stepping up. The mutual aid not only served our community, when we had times when there were a couple of nights we had an abundance of items that we were getting out. I was able to call up my colleagues who work in the East African community, the Latino community, and say, we have these things available to go out to families. Can you come and take some of them? And they did. The other thing I wanted to, you talked about the arts and culture meeting. So that meeting's coming, the next meeting in June. We've already invited the director of the City of Minneapolis, Arts and Culture Department. So he's going to come, Ben Johnson is going to come in June, and he's going to present to the subcommittee about some of the things that the city is working on, opportunity for artists, grants that might be out. Speaking of grants, can you touch a little bit on, through my work with MUID, being able to witness some of the things you've done, there were conversations that happened with the state of Minnesota and how funds are thought about, RFPs are created, reviewed, and how sometimes money is pushed out to community.
Well, we have, like MUID, we're not an entity that fundraises or applies for grants, but we do have this money that we manage from the city, and that runs through NACD, which is appropriate. They do that for a lot of different for agencies, and they do it for MUID. And we did receive money directed from DHS from when Commissioner Harpstead, just before she left, was like, and did what we've asked for a lot, which is like, just give us some money and let us run with it, and we know what to do with it. And we received a significant funding from her that then 5 different MUID agencies did many different things with it. And it's like, for us, we were blessed that we had Many Shields here. That money helped pay for Many Shields to come here in the morning, at night to DIW. We're on Lake Street, and make it safe for us. And we had that for a whole year. And I don't think I called 911 once because we had them. But there was work that peer recovery work through Indigenous Peoples Task Force. And so our community was able to utilize that funding to really serve our relatives. So that's pretty exciting. And then we also, with that that money that in that contract that with the city, each subcommittee has a small pot of money that we vote on and how to spend it. So like Thursday coming up tomorrow night at the South High Practice Field is honoring our youth event for Minneapolis schools, and some of the money that MUD gets from the city is supporting that event for students. So it's pretty exciting what people do with and what we accomplished together.
Yeah, I think one thing I would just want to bring up is what you're referring to is having many shields come and protect the community. The last summer or the summer before, I mean, it was pretty hot out there. And so there was a need for extra security for people coming to programming, staff. I think we're running out of time. We could have done a whole hour on this as well. I'd ask you to come back, but you're not going to be chair anymore or vice chair.
Oh, you can still have her back. Hey, thank you for tuning in to this month's episode of Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations. See you all tomorrow. Big Peeny Gigi, great show.
Miigwech.
Oh, this is Robert Pilot for Native